welcome. Can we just have another round of applause for Paul and Max, because I thought they did an awesome job. That's my FYI. Thank you. You all get A's for today. All right, welcome to this celebration of Beloit College's 168th academic year. Convocation marks one of 2 days each year when our faculty and staff don their academic regalia, which I think is a grand tradition. But I also recognize one of Beloit's other traditions is that when it is unbearably hot, we also invite those faculty and staff so inclined to doff their regalia for the duration of the ceremony, while those of us on the platform demonstrate our physical and moral superiority by remaining regally bedecked even in the face of adversity. So have at it as you will. I know Suzanne Cox has already doffed hers. I would say today could have been much, much worse. I think I will take the reign for a little less heat. New students, I'm afraid I cannot ask you to engage in any further disrobing. I've already told Cameron that as well. But I can welcome you to this tradition of celebrating the opening of our academic year and your membership in this community we call Beloit. Already you have begun to become part of multiple intimate cross-cutting communities here, your FYI or your transfer and exchange seminar, your residential floor, your sports teams, the people you have begun to enjoy eating with or hanging out with at the wall. Soon to come will be students and faculty in more classes, clubs and associations, and other friends. Today, we draw attention to larger communities of which you are a part, communities that extend across space and time. First-year students, look around. Many of the people you see here will be members of your graduating class. The next time that you will be gathered together in this way as a class will be on the day before your graduation at the college's baccalaureate celebration. Transfer and exchange students, look around. You are gathered with the people with whom you've shared your first experiences and memories of Beloit College, the people, again, with whom you've gathered at the wall. As President Bierman pointed out last Monday, your wall. This group is one of your Beloit communities. This gathering calls our attention to that connection. Moreover, all of you are Beloiters, occupying a larger college community that spans the world and reaches backward and forward in time. One of the most intuitive and surprising things about Beloit is how Beloiters recognize one another as fellow Beloiters. They can't always say why, they just know, regardless of whether they graduated 15 years before or 15 years after one another. Beloit isn't big on formal traditions, but we keep this one of celebrating the beginning of each academic year by donning and doffing our academic regalia and gathering in this chapel, calling ourselves back to our history and our mission, our commitment to engage your intelligence, your imagination, and your curiosity, and prepare you to act thoughtfully and ethically in a complex world. And it gives us one more chance to say how much we look forward to the ways that you will make this college your own. Several people join me in this welcome. The first is President Scott Bierman, who, after helping some of you move into your rooms last week, then making you think that attendance at the wall was somehow mandatory, and telling your families to go away, now welcomes you to this start of your first year at Beloit.
I'm teaching an FYI next year, Anne, so that I get a cheer nearly as welcoming as yours. Welcome, everyone. There is little in life that is better than looking over the embodiment of a new academic year. Perhaps a slightly wet embodiment this year, but glorious nonetheless. Being with you here today reminds me what a great day it is to be a Beloiter. So, since the weather outside is inclement, let's enjoy a moment of opening Convocation algebra, a little back of the envelope, opening Convocation algebra. Let's begin by first appreciating our good fortune for this surprisingly temperate weather this morning. We could have been expecting to be at the opening moments of one of the hottest hours of our lives. But this is really surprisingly pleasant, just about perfect listening weather. Now, I am guessing that there are about 500 of you in this room in Eaton Chapel right now, and that on average, the foregone value of your time is about $30 per hour. Multiplying $30 per hour times the 500 of you who are here means that the collective cost of you sitting here listening to those of us on this stage, assuming it takes us about an hour, is approximately $15,000. In other words, it is our job on this stage, under these surprisingly nice weather conditions, to make good with at least $15,000 worth of wisdom, or else this whole shebang should be canceled. Since each course at this college costs about $10,000 of explicit faculty time, $15,000 sort of represents 1.5 courses. Now, Cameron Dieter, this fine specimen of a Beloiter right to my left, is probably worth $15,000 by himself, even before you have added in the prodigious wisdom producing machines of Provost Ann Davies or Professor of History Beatrice McKenzie. But right now, allow me to be narrowly and provincially interested only in my part of this little puzzle. So remember that it is $15,000 for an hour of your collective time. Dividing 15,000 by 60 to get the cost of your time per minute means that I have to deliver at least $250 of rhetorical splendor per minute to hold up my end of the bargain. And I am already 2 minutes into my remarks, and I am guessing those 2 minutes are worth $100 max, all in. Already, I am deficit spending. It turns out that I speak at a rate of about 125 words per minute. You can count if you want, but I think I'm pretty close to being right. This means that each word I utter has a cost of about $2. Each word. So, for example, if I were to say something like, turtles all the way down, I have to believe that that's 5 words times $2 per word. It's worth about $10 to have said it. It's about an hour and a half of a student's work time wages. Saying, it's a great day to be a Beloiter. Costs $18. That's a sobering thought. Even just saying Cameron Dieter is $4. Cameron Dieter, another $4. If I just say Ann Davies rather than Dean of the college and Provost Ann Davies, I saved $12. So a week ago, I made my peace with my ability to hold forth for about 5 minutes, that is 625 words, and deliver something that I believed would have been valued a little over $2 per word. Had it not been 75 degrees today, so it had been what had been predicted, 150 degrees, then the opportunity cost of your time would have been much more like $50 per hour rather than $20. This means that the cost per word from anyone up here would have been a little over $3, and we all would have had a moral responsibility to cut back by about 50%. Still, even in the relative comfort of 75 degrees, I'm going to limit the substance of my remarks, which admittedly I've not yet started, to 200 words or less. That is, the incremental cost of my remarks will be less than $400 in total, or 80 cents per person, starting now. At the college's outset, the very first 2 faculty members, Joseph Emerson and Jackson Bushnell, both young Yaleys, first met each other. Neither knew what to expect of this college, not even whether to realistically expect a paycheck. Professor Emerson looked to Professor Bushnell at that first meeting and asked, "Can we have a college here?" And Professor Bushnell responded, "Yes, if we will make it." You have heard exactly this message over and over again this week. For this college to have meaning to you that you deserve, you have to make this your college. So my welcome to you consists of this essential question, the essential Beloiter question, the question that has served Beloit so well from its inception in 1846, exactly the same question that Professor Emerson asked of Professor Bushnell. Can we have a college here? And the only answer that is worthy of Beloit College is for you to respond, yes, if we will make it. We means you. Say it. Can we have a college here? Can we have a college here? Your job, my friends, our new Beloiters, is to make good on this answer. Welcome and have a wonderful year.
Well, it's almost as if Cameron needs no introduction, but I will introduce you to Cameron Dieter, who is the president of the Beloit Student Congress. He hails from Portland, Oregon. I have a couple of students up there who will give him the Portland cheer, I'm sure. Cameron is a junior with a double major in political science and history. He spent this past summer, for better or worse, working in local government, and I do believe that Cameron may be able to recite Beloit's Statement of Student Culture by heart. Cameron.
Thank you. Scott, I can't help but notice you saved a little money with the call and response there. Want to remind you we have a strict academic dishonesty policy. We don't like cheating here. So as everyone said, I'm Cameron Dieter. Guys liking the fans? Right? They're helpful. I want to draw everyone's attention, because I love the Statement of Culture, because I'm BSC president, to the fourth stanza there, right? We embrace accountability for actions as adults. I've been thinking a lot about that last word. Right? Adult. What does adult mean exactly? Part of the reason was, as Ann said, I was working my first grown-up job, doing taxes, tucking my shirt in every day, bringing novelty coffee mugs to work, complaining about traffic, right? So I've been thinking a lot about, being an adult, and I noticed a lot of, so-called adults, right? And I guess I was looking for models of adulthood. And I noticed some fairly significant trends. Now, I want to caution this by reciting some advice my mother once gave me. She said there's two kinds of people in the world: those who divide everything into binary and those with common sense. As I do with most of Mama Dieter's advice, I'm just throwing that right out the window. I think there is a noticeable divide between individuals who make the most of the opportunities they're presented to and those who don't. Now, that's not to say questions of privilege and opportunity are out the window, because they're not, right? We all know that's a huge factor in why we're successful, what goes on in our lives. But I think the attitude question, I think the initiative question is huge. I had a high school teacher that once said, I want you to bring solutions to the table, not problems. I think about it a little differently, right? I call it the swipe left complex, named after my favorite app, Tinder. Yeah, we got some Tinder fans in the audience. Let's go Tinder. Y'all can find each other after the show. For those who don't know what Tinder is, it's a dating app on your phone where you say, you're a single man looking for women or what have you, and then local singles in the area pop up. And you either swipe left if you're not interested, or you swipe right if you are interested. Pretty simple mechanic. But I think it really relates to a broader ease of access to opportunity that I think a lot of us have in our life, right? There's a lot of stuff that's going on. There's a lot of stuff we can do, especially at Beloit. New students, right? You've been given an onslaught this week of acronyms, opportunities, this department, this office, all of these different opportunities you can take. Beloit is set up for us students to be successful. And yet at the end of 4 years, more often than not, students find themselves swiping left on opportunity after opportunity. I mean, let's just kind of run through it, right? We've got Learning Enrichment and Disability Services for tutoring. We have the Writing Center. We have the Liberal Arts and Practice Center. Shouts out to Jessica Fox Wilson for doing resume stuff. We have TRIO. Beyond that, right, beyond the individual offices and the acronyms, we have administrators, right? I don't know if Scott ever sleeps, because every time I talk to him, he's talking about losing sleep about some problem or another, right? Anne has the Liberal Arts and Practice tattooed on her lower back area. John probably cares more about students than I do, honestly. Christina, right, always talking about health and wellness and making sure that our students are living lives of purposeful consequence, right? That's one of the administrative buzzwords we have here, because we want people to graduate Beloit and matter. Even beyond just administration, right? And talking about individual connections. Faculty members. If students, if you're having a problem with the paper, right? You're not sure where to go with it, you're not sure where to go with this assignment, you're struggling, hit your faculty members up. Go to lunch, hang out. Lunch is free for faculty members on Fridays, as of a new initiative this year, and they'll be more than willing, I got a laugh over there, and they'll be more than willing to take you up on that. I mean, you feeling kind of bored after school? I want to make friends, but I don't know. We've got approximately 17.3 million clubs on campus, and if for some ungodly reason those aren't enough for you, you can just make one with like 6 people on a piece of paper. I mean, honestly, right, we have such ample opportunities to make a difference in our community and make the experience our own, but it's hard, right? Right now, well, it's not sunny, but the weather's nice. It's August. Everyone's back. There's a good vibe around campus. People are excited. You all know it's not going to be August forever. It's going to, winter is coming, right? And both literally and figuratively. And there's going to be days when it's cold. There's going to be days when the Hendricks Center is so far away. There's going to be days when you go to Commons and you're not feeling the quinoa and you don't want to go a burger 3 days in a row. And there's a kale salad, but it looks kind of weird. And then they're doing Peach Fest for some reason and no one knows why and you're allergic to peaches. I love Peach Fest. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I mean, there's going to be days like that, right? There's going to be nights when you're sitting at home on Netflix and you're looking at the documentaries, right? You want to learn something at 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's, misrepresentation, I'm not really feeling it. You swipe left on that. And there's oceans, I don't like the color blue. You go on that, right? You find yourself scrolling through feed after feed. You're talking about, you're going through your Tumblr, nothing interesting. I can't even get outraged today. I mean, honestly, it's going to happen, and it's going to be hard to wake up in the morning, and it's going to be hard to go to class, and it's going to be hard to meet people. It's going to be hard to take the most advantage of the opportunities that you're given. It's going to be really, really easy to swipe left all the time. But I'm here to encourage you not to do that. I think the most Beloit experience, the best experience that you can get for I'm going to use the other value metric we use, the money that you pay to go here, not just this abstract time thing. I'm not a math major, Scott. I can't. But seriously, right? You all know we pay tuition, right? And that's a lot of money. $15,000 is a lot of money, and that's not even what we're paying in tuition. So, that's a lot of money, right? We want to get the most experience out of that. We want to get the most valuable time out of that. The best way you're going to be able to do that is by swiping right. It's going to be by going to these people. It's going to be talking to people. If you don't know who to go to, ask your RA. Ask somebody in your class. Ask your professor. There are an almost infinite number of resources available to you. You just got to swipe right. Thank you.
Great. We have our first musical piece of the program with Bits and Pieces.
Bum 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 bum
Reading ancient manuscripts in history class, synthesizing aspirin in the lab, doing contact improv in the Hendricks and truck to the sports center so I can work my abs. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit. Voodoo Barbies improving in Richardson. The Buccaneers are playing in the flood. Bits and Pieces has a show in Java Joint, and if you're still bored, you can always join a club. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit. Those other schools are simply not for me. Here at Beloit I am free to make my own identity. The farmers market's open in the warmer months, and next year I am studying abroad. I love studying round the world, but I still miss the times we danced at Folk and Blues Fest in the quad. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit. In the President's Lounge, hanging out with Scotty B. I'm having class sitting with the squirrels in the garden of poetry. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit. Oh Beloit, what goes on here? La 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 at Beloit.
Way to swipe right. So, most of you in the audience spent this past week parsing courses, thinking about getting an appropriately broad array of subjects, and paying some attention to graduation requirements. I don't mean to sell our curriculum short. We've put a lot of thought into its structure and what it may offer you. But here's what's far more likely to have a great impact on the education you carry away from this college and the life that you lead: finding the best teachers. Connecting with them and seeing the world in new ways and really caring about it, this is where the real power of learning lies. The kind of learning that changes how you think and what you think about, and as a result, changes who you are. Professor Beatrice McKenzie is one of those teachers. Associate Professor of History and this year's winner of the Underkoffler Award for Excellence in Teaching, an expert in the history of U.S. citizenship and U.S. diplomatic history, Professor McKenzie is adept at turning just about any issue or question into an historical one. Her teaching and her scholarship are motivated by the conviction that what is living about history is its relationship to the present. Behind Beatrice's love of history lies a genuine interest in the stories of individuals. Beatrice draws out and connects with people's stories. It's what makes her a distinguished scholar, and it's one of her secrets for excellent teaching. Ask her sometime about Alice Palmer, a woman who brought a successful gender discrimination suit against the U.S. State Department in the 1970s. Ask students in her Women's Citizenship and Diplomacy class, who also got to Skype with Ms. Palmer this past spring, to learn about her life and her activism and her life in relationship to theirs. Beatrice reminds us that history and stories, including our own, are all around us. She reminds us that the most important questions are the ones we want to ask. She encourages us to think about how the various pieces of our learning and experiences fit together. She forges a world of intellectual culture and personal mentoring that students call life-changing. She's also among the wisest people I know. So please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker today, Professor Beatrice McKenzie.
It might be wisest never to follow Cameron Dieter on a podium. I want to open today with a poem by Jose Marti titled I Dream Awake. I dream with my eyes open, and always, by day and night I dream, and on top of the foaming waves of the wide and restless sea, and through the spiraling sands of the desert, upon a mighty lion, monarch of my heart, always I see floating a boy who calls to me. The poem speaks to me on several levels. José Martí, the 19th century Cuban writer, diplomat, and patriot in exile, lived 15 years in New York City, where he commented most memorably on the perils of U.S. expansionism. The Cuban-born son of an impoverished Spaniard, Martí was 9 years old when he witnessed the unloading of slave ships in Havana harbor and the public hanging of a man who had tried to escape. From that young age, he developed a lifelong commitment to freedom. Perhaps the boy who calls out to him is his younger self, reminding him of his commitment. By age 17, Martí had founded a liberationist newspaper, age 17, in Cuba. He was caught with a letter critical of the government, and he served hard labor for 6 months before being deported to Spain. When released from prison, however, he took up studies in literature and law. As an adult, Martí brought his message of resistance to Mexico, Guatemala, and Venezuela. He moved at the age of 33 to New York, and in essays and newspaper articles, he reported on Gilded Age society and resistance politics. He helped establish a free night school for islanders in the city. Martí criticized U.S. expansionism into the West, into Mexico, and into Cuba and elsewhere in the Caribbean. And he tied the sense of exceptionalism, the sense of expansionist entitlement to the mistreatment of immigrants in the United States. This was the 1880s and 1890s. Martí eventually joined a cross-racial coalition to cast off Spanish rule and achieve independence in Cuba. He died a poetic death on a white horse on a battlefield in 1895. His words, like his actions, have inspired generations since his death. My task today is to say a few words to inspire you about the beginning of the school year. Tough enough, I know, for the end of any summer break, but much harder to do in what I expected to be a heat wave. I worried so much about the heat wave, and I remembered last year being up in the wings of the room with my FYI class, hoping that none of us would pass out before we exited the chapel. The heat does bring me directly to my topic, Cuba. And speaking of heat reminds me of just how hot it was while I was in Cuba a month ago, coming up with a topic for this course, for this talk. The only time I saw a thermometer, one typical day at 11 in the morning, it read 39 degrees Celsius, or 101 degrees Fahrenheit. And let's just say that was not a dry heat. What was I doing in Cuba? I spent the month of July gathering research materials for a course I'm teaching this semester, a senior seminar in the history of relations between the US and Cuba from 1898 to present. As historians do everywhere, this research happened in a library, the José Martí National Library, and in museums. For several afternoons, I had the pleasure, the distinct pleasure, I think you have to be a historian to find this really fun, for example, of poring over 1898 newspapers with photos of the explosion of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor, and editorials trying to figure out what had happened and what it meant. Hoping a student in my class might be interested, I made copies of advertisements in the newspaper from before the war and the period of US occupation that followed it. It was hot the day that I wandered around San Juan Hill on the other end of the island, climbing up the lookout post and seeing the trenches dug during the Spanish-American War. The monument to the unknown Cuban soldier at the site reminded me how US forces at the time failed to recognize their debt to Cuban freedom fighters like Martí, whose death had occurred only 3 years earlier. I never made it to Guantanamo, but I spent another memorable afternoon in the museum at the Bay of Pigs, hoping people would think I was perhaps Canadian, examining invasion routes and photographing mortars and heavy machine guns captured in 1961 from the US-sponsored invasion forces. I spent every day from noon to 5 p.m. in a library or a museum, and no, none of the buildings was air-conditioned. So yeah, it was hot. But I felt so fortunate to be there because for almost all of my life, and for nearly all of yours, US citizens haven't been allowed to travel to Cuba. These restrictions have eased recently to allow Americans to travel there for research and educational purposes. And a group of Beloit faculty, staff, and trustees went to Cuba last January, a trip organized by our outstanding Office of International Education and paid for by generous donors who hope broadly to contribute to improved human rights and also specifically to improved relations between the two nations. Noble goals that I share. In addition to the history course, professors in literature, biology, anthropology, geology, international relations, and education will be adding knowledge to our courses that we gained in that travel experience. And so you see, much more than a report of how I spent my summer vacation, this is a story of your professors' commitment. No, the Beloit College community's commitment to the liberal arts, to making more profound our understandings of our fields and bringing those understandings directly back to the classroom. We're not yet able to bring students to Cuba. We're working on it. But we practice the liberal arts alongside our students in many other locales, such as when Professor Amy Sarno in Theater and Media Studies guided a group of Beloit College student actors to Italy this summer. Or Professor Deborah Majid in Religious Studies oversaw a program in Morocco. Or Professors Liesl Walsh and Matthew Taylor, who brought a group of classicists to Rome. Professor Nancy Krusco in Anthropology, who brought students to Nicaragua to study microcredits and health outcomes. Or Professors Daniel Yude, Susan Furukawa, Donna Oliver, Sylvia Lopez, and Oswaldo Voices, who directed Cities in Transition projects for their students abroad in China, Japan, Russia, and Ecuador. I speak for my colleagues in the staff and faculty when I say that we live the liberal arts in practice. We're not drawn to our jobs for the comfort factor. I know you know that today. We're drawn to our jobs at Beloit College for the ways that they allow us to find meaning and passion for living. From my experience as a practitioner of the liberal arts, I'd like to offer 3 lessons. The first is about love. The college staff and your professors love you. I know we have different understandings of love at different ages, and students think immediately of romantic love, but college staff and professors don't. We think of love in its greatest glory, giving unto others out of love, acting out of a sense of higher purpose and a commitment to values, having other people's interests in mind rather than our own. Being there for a student or a colleague to rely on. And you students, you are worthy of this love. Reach out and find yourself 3 or 4 faculty and staff mentors in your time here. We post office hours. Drop by and introduce yourself. You can run your ideas by us, and we'll listen to them with open hearts and minds. We will teach you, we'll have your back, we'll help you find meaningful internships. And later, we'll express our sense of who you have become and what you stand for when we talk to your future employers on the phone or write letters in grad school. Second lesson, figuring out your purpose will take time and effort. What do you believe in? What do you want to follow through with your whole heart? Is it improving medical knowledge through cell biology? Is it a commitment to social justice out of the horrific events on the border or in Ferguson, Missouri? Is it learning sustainable environmental practices? Is it entrepreneurship? Is it understanding human motivation? Whatever it is, go for it. Learn it. Dream wide awake. Take up your studies, your sports and clubs, your internships, your community involvement with a seriousness of purpose that's born of your values. Stop by the Liberal Arts in Practice Center to brainstorm ideas with staff. You've got the great fortune of being in an educational community where liberal arts are practiced, where links between theory and action are made explicit, and where studying and learning are cool. You'll notice pretty quickly that other students in your classes have done the homework. Thank God for the professors, right? Thank God those students come to class prepared. They've done the reading, they're in class, talking about how their experiences in life or in another class relate to the coursework, talking about real issues that they care about. Let your interests drive your selection of courses and of activities, but don't forget that you need to put in the time and effort to make connections between your coursework and your life. The final lesson I have for you is the most important. It's to recognize that the person next to you has equal worth. A class only gels when every student is involved. Pay attention to who speaks in your classes, and make room for other voices. Every student in your FYI should feel as comfortable to express themselves as everyone else. If someone feels left out, it's up to you to include them. This understanding and action requires us to recognize the depth of privilege that we possess, whether that privilege is gained by race, by social class, by sexuality, by ability, or by gender. I'm very grateful to the many colleagues and students who have encouraged me to understand my privilege, and particularly to a group I joined last semester, Sustained Dialogue, that's helping me work through how to move from understanding and conversation to action. Sustained Dialogue is a small group of people who commit to a semester-long or a year-long conversation about issues, the very most important issues, like racial justice and belonging on our campus. I recommend Sustained Dialogue to everyone present, to students, staff, faculty, and administrators. When you live in love, when you're open to hearing and exploring truths, hard truths, with others, when you stick it out through the discomfort and you commit to working hard anyway, out of these conditions, opportunities will present themselves to live a life of meaning and passion in the liberal arts. Welcome to your opportunity. Welcome to Beloit College.
So this is the part of the ceremony that makes me just a little bit nervous because, it says that I'm presiding, but I have no idea about what's going to happen next. So I'm looking at Kindle, my OL, and other OLs, and something's going to happen, I guess.
Thanks for joining in with us, guys. This is our orientation leader activity, so thanks for that. This is our new tradition, and I put air quotes around tradition because this is actually the first time that we've ever done this. Also, I'm running, and so I'm kind of out of breath. We hope that with time, this chant will become a Beloit College tradition, no quotation marks. In the past, students and faculty sang some songs together, and orientation leaders would lead that. But we decided to leave the music to the more musically inclined bits and pieces. I don't know, I can't sing, so I can lead a chant, though. Pretty good at leading that. And students used to have sessions where they learned these songs. Instead, you just get to hear them sung beautifully by people who can actually sing. But the chant we just did came to you from a song that you may remember from the welcome session, in which the orientation leaders were also chanting very loudly in the back of the room, and then bits and pieces put very lovely into a song for us. To cement this new tradition, we'd like to run a little bit of a competition between the faculty and staff versus the students. Here's the gist. We're going to start off really quiet. All right, we're going to go back and forth. So faculty are going to go, "Oh, Beloit." And students are going to go, "Oh, Beloit." All right? And then we're going to gradually go back and forth until we're as loud as we could possibly be and the roof falls off. Okay? And for the purpose of this, the OLs are going to help out the faculty because, I don't know, we're young, we have energy, right? All right, faculty, though. I know you still have energy and you're going to show me, but first you're going to start off really quiet. You ready? Faculty first. Very quietly. Ready?
Oh, Beloit! Oh, Beloit! Oh, Beloit! Oh,
And I'm giving it back to Bits and Pieces for some actual music. We have Bits and Pieces.
Excellent. All right, so we welcome back up onto stage Bits and Pieces for the singing of one of my favorite songs, Domine Salvum Fac.
Domine salvam fac patria nostra Americam et exaudi nos in die qua invoca venimus te. Domine salvam fac ama matrem nostrum Beloit ensem et exaudi nos in die qua invoca venimus te.
Okay, could I have our flag bearers come up and collect your flags? And while they're doing that, faculty and staff members, if you could make yourselves decent again, that would be lovely. So in a moment, the chapel will swell with the resounding notes of our college organ and trumpet, played so joyously by Emeritus Professor of Music Max Yount and Professor of Physics Paul Stanley. Our flags will precede the faculty and staff. Okay, so they will lead us out of the chapel, and then faculty and staff will recess, and then we are done. So thank you.